Deckbox Dungeons has many of the things that I like in games. It is a dungeon crawler, fantasy dungeon crawler. I'm a huge sucker for that style of game for whatever reason. It is small and portable, always nice because there are the dungeon crawlers that are big productions. And so in truth, you don't end up really playing them all that often because you don't feel like setting them all up and putting them away. So it also travels light, and it is cooperative and can be played in solitaire. All things that I like very much. Basically, if Deckbox Dungeons that has all of these things come together nice in the game, this has to be one of the best games that they played in a while. And we'll see if that is the case in the conclusions. So very, very simple, very portable. This is all that you need to play the game. Well, sorta. There's also a companion app that you will download on your phone. It's for free, and that will act as sort of a dungeon master. So it will tell you which areas you have discovered and what's in those areas, etc, etc, etc. And if I counted right, there are 14 adventures that are available already in the app, and maybe they will add more later. Now, what you find in the box, probably you will want to start having a look at the rulebook, and the rulebook is not done particularly well. I found it super hard to learn the game from the rulebook, not just because of the Lilliputian font, but especially because the information seemed to be scattered around, not where I expected it to be. From the rulebook only, I wasn't able to answer all of my questions. I wasn't even able to figure out the structure really. But there's also Player Aid that in a sense is better, and between the two of those, and maybe you ask some questions on Board Game Geek, you'll be able to figure it out. Also, when you start a scenario, just press on any icons that you find, and that should also help you. Next, we have dice and meeples. Regular six-sided dice, they're used to resolve combat and other things. These colored dice actually represent the enemies. You have three types, red, blue, and green, and each side will show you a weapon, meaning what type of enemy that is, and a number there, which I assume is the number of life points that they have. So basically, say if the instructions tell me that I entered a room and I encountered 2 green monsters and 2 blue monsters, so I rolled the dice, and now I learned that I encountered 3 melee monsters that have melee capabilities, 2 green, 1 blue, and 1 that uses range weapons, and now I also know the number of life points that they have. I need to reduce that number to 0 to defeat the monsters. We have meeples, we have 5, so we can choose the heroes that will represent us in the game, but with the materials that you find in the box, you can only play with 1 or 2 players, because on top of the meeples you also need other things, which frankly, I don't know, maybe you could repurpose other game components, but the idea is that with a single box you can play with 1 or 2 players, so you need to add a second set to play with 3 or 4. Then we get to the cards themselves. We have a deck of treasures. Shuffle those at the beginning of the game. 3 treasures will be available for you to acquire at any given point. You will collect treasures, and then once you have treasure, you spend it. There is a number bottom right corner, that is the cost. And then you have the effect. When you take this one, you buy it, and then you discard it, you recover 2 health points. Pretty self-explanatory. There will be always 3 treasures available. When 1 is bought, then you simply discard it, and another one becomes available. The instructions on the card make this self-explanatory. Then our heroes. We want to create our heroes. Each hero will have 3 cards, such as these, that are used to keep track of energy, health, and treasure. You start with some health, but you start with 0 treasure and 0 energy. I don't drink an energy drink already. Energy, I think of it as magical energy, karma, but really it just represents the currency that you accumulate during combat, and then you can spend later to trigger game effects. What we have here is the enemies. Remember, I told you that, say, this result shows that you are facing a blue melee monster. Now these are the abilities and stats of that monster, behavior of that monster. However, for each monster there are two versions. So this is one blue melee and this is the other blue melee. Same for blue range and blue ranged. And these are the other monsters, ranged and melee. And I was a little confused at the beginning as to which one to use. The scenario instructions will tell you in that scenario the range is the range green is the zealot, and the melee green is the cultist or the slip thief. So you will be told during the instructions. There's also a big boss, which I'm not showing to you, so it's more exciting. When are we talking about creating your hero? Yes, indeed. To do so, as I said, you need those 3 cards, and then you need something that goes on it. The precious reference card, don't lose it. This, to me, was more useful than the entire rulebook, almost. Then we have floor plans. They're numbered and double-sided, 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. But when are we trying to build a hero? Yeah, somebody must have cast slowing down. I keep forgetting to make my point spell. Each hero will be composed of 3 cards. One showing the hero, the main hero, and then you simply choose the hero that you're gonna be. Suppose I want to create Dunael, who has a starting health of 7. So basically I put the health card there that way to indicate the current level. I guess if you don't want things to get maybe ambiguous at some point, you're like, oh, I don't know. Of course, you could just place a small wooden cube on the track. It will work just the same. Next, we equip our hero with weapons, and we have a selection of weapons, and we decide to give him this one. We line up those areas there from the weapon with those on the character, and then we also move the treasures so that we see that the treasure right now is 0. And then also we can specialize. We give a profession to our hero and we choose one of these cards, again double-sided. And what they do is, well, the presence of that one is used also to keep track of your energy. It will modify the abilities on that side, and will also give you special abilities. When you collect energy points, which you do during combat, you can then spend them to activate these abilities. And since each hero will have different sets of abilities and different weapons, and then again, and you have different heroes, the customization of the characters can be pretty intense, very satisfying, and surprising really for a game this simple. Basically, now looking at the hero more up close, the stats are the sum of the values from the basic stats and the abilities and weapons that have been added. For example, in melee, now my hero here will roll 1 die and will add a total of +3. Pretty accurate, but not very powerful there. In range combat, we'll roll 2 dice and we'll have a +1. We'll have a +1 in defense, 5 movement points, etc, etc, etc. Say there may be other equipments that will slow me down, but also give me more defense, so other give me more dice, but they're not as accurate, etc, etc, etc. And then we have different abilities such as strength, knowledge, agility here on this side. During the game, from time to time, you'll be asked to take a check. Say, test your dexterity, that sort of thing. When that is the case, you will roll 4 6-sided dice. You will add the modifier for the category that you're testing. So if I'm testing this one, it will be a +2. Each 6 or higher that you roll is a success. And so maybe the test was like agility 2. That means that to pass the test, you need to have 2 successes on your 4 dice after you apply those modifiers. And the general idea is that every time you roll a 6, a natural 6 or a modified 6 after you add the modifiers, you succeed, you're successful. And so suppose that this is our guy. Now, who could represent? Well, we gave him the staff, so we're going to give him this one. Now, it's time to start the adventure. You will launch the companion app, choose an adventure, and suppose that we have a classic adventure that starts with from room 1A. And we place our hero there. Suppose we also prepared a miniature hero for this one. Even if you play solitaire, you may want to have 2 heroes, otherwise things get pretty tough. Now, during your turn, you can take 2 actions, which can be move and fight, fight and move, fight, or move. Basically, move and fight in any order, and you can repeat them. When you move to an edge, then you simply explore what's there. You click on the companion action. There will be a little banner that says explore on any exit that you can, well, guess what, explore. And maybe we're told that now you reached room 10A. And so we place room 10A there. And this character now is in between rooms. And there we go. Then we click on the icon for 10A on our screen or our phone, and we're told what we find there. Maybe we find 2 green monsters and a blue monster. Then we roll them. Now we know what they are and how strong they are. And each card will have a spawning point. You start by placing a die on the spawning point, and then you simply go around counting, say 1. Let's imagine the spawning point is here, it's easier. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, basically the corners, 6, 7, 8, 9. And when space doesn't exist, you keep going. For example, here there's a half space, so there will be 1, 2, 3 doesn't exist, 4 is a half space, I don't trust it. Then we do 5, we go around again, and 6. There you go. To attack, you will use your ranged weapon. If you are not adjacent to an enemy and you have line of sight, you roll the number indicated, remember, by your range capability. And for each 6 that you roll, you score, it's a success. If you roll a natural 6, that success, it's immediately and automatically a wound, cannot be defended. Otherwise, if you reach a 6 through a modified result, say 4+2, the opponent gets a chance of defending. That is, they will roll the successes. That's bad. They will roll the successes, they will add their own defense value. For example, I attacked the Zealot. It wasn't a natural 6. The Zealot gets to roll a die, apply the modifier, and for each 6 or higher, the defender cancels one of my hits. Basically, the Zealot will cancel hits by rolling a 5 or a 6. So you roll dice for the attack, and in melee, it's the same procedure, but using the melee value. Inflict damage, roll for the opponent to defend, and after that, when everybody's done, the opponents will act. Their behavior is pretty predictable. People with monsters with ranged weapons want to stay at a maximum distance and shoot at you. Monsters with melee will move towards the closest enemy, with some variety sometimes, but the closest hero, and will attack them, following the same procedure. They also, when attacking, roll a number of dice, apply a modifier. Each 6 or higher is a hit. Their natural 6s cannot be cancelled. Modified 6s, you reroll, you apply your defense value, and you cancel each die that gives you a 6 or higher. This is pretty much the general idea. When you score a hit, whether it's going to be cancelled or not, that is when you acquire energy. I was thinking, maybe I'm thinking of this as like experience points. Maybe it makes more sense to me. Also, when you defeat an enemy, it goes down to 0. Before you remove it, you roll it, and the number that it shows is the number of treasure points or coins, whatever is the wealth that you find, and that is what you can use then to purchase those actions there. There's a general idea. There's kind of vague because there are so many different missions and so each is different. But basically, you simply continue like this. You activate, explore rooms, find monsters, defeat monsters, try not to get killed too much, and continue like this until you complete the objectives or the adventure. Well, or you fail to do so, I guess. I love this game. I love it so much. In a sense, it is the perfect dungeon crawler. In a sense, it is the platonic ideal dungeon crawlers that the other dungeon crawlers came from. It has all that I'm looking for in a dungeon crawler. I was gonna say everything a dungeon crawler should have. Yes, that's my opinion, but maybe you're looking for different things in a dungeon crawler. And I know that there is the appeal for many people towards miniatures and those beautiful components, like the ones that you find in Dungeons & Dragons board games, such as Castle Ravenloft, Wrath of Ashardalon, and all the ones that came after that, which are great games, but they're also large, expensive, and it also takes a long time to set them up. They're big productions, and sometimes you just want to play a quick adventure, go down there in the dark with some brave heroes, face horrible monsters, find treasures, and all that. You don't want to have to spend so much time setting up everything and then putting everything back together. But then you have a game such as this one, which allows, in fact, to have the experience of a true dungeon adventure with tactical depth, with interesting decisions, with customizable characters. I'm surprised by how much you can customize these characters. You can definitely customize them more than in Wrath of Ashardalon, Castle Ravenloft, and D&D board games. So you have what is really a great fantasy adventure in such a small box, in a game that is so easy to set up, that it is so easy to play. Once you learn it. Rules, I think, could have been laid out better, but this is really the only negative I can think of. And again, I really like the fact that the game is so portable, so affordable, travels well. You can set it up so easily. The trade-off, again, is some of you will think, but ultimately that's a die. Doesn't really look like a cultist or an orc to me. With the power of imagination, I didn't have any problem seeing those dice as the enemies. Also, the art on the cards is very thematic, and so to me that was enough. I really got the sense that I was there. Actually, I was really surprised that the game felt so immersive. Not just in the sense that we often use the word these days as engrossing. Immersive really in the fact like, oh, I'm there, I'm in the dark fighting against these monsters. I was just surprised by how evocative these components managed to be. And gameplay, as I said, feels pretty deep from the tactical point of view. Definitely I thought the combat is more tactical here than in Dungeons & Dragons board games. I keep bringing up that comparison because from the point of view of gameplay, I would say that's one of the closest examples that I can think of, but this one is better. Not just because it's smaller and you play it more often, but really because gameplay is streamlined, it feels less fiddly than Dungeons & Dragons board games, and combat is more satisfying because the monsters move in a way that is more precise, more accurate. They don't just teleport from one tile to the other. That means that you can predict and manipulate their movement a little bit, but then you can also exploit what you know about their movement to create interesting combos and synergies with your heroes. Somebody's hiding behind a corner, so the monster is targeting someone else, but the monster is moving, and then you come out from out the corner and you ambush them. You can set up actually interesting situations that I don't recall seeing in other dungeon crawlers, in many other dungeon crawlers. Again, surprisingly satisfying combat. And from the point of view of storytelling, that's another great thing. we have this inescapable trade-off. If a game has hidden content, it has a chance of giving you the joy of storytelling, which is precisely about discovering new things as you go, but precisely because of that, then these games have an expiration date. After a while, you learn about the scenarios, you learn the things that are there, and so these games lose some of their glamour, some of their appeal after a while. And some games, especially legacy games, well, you have very expensive components that you can't really enjoy too many times. What I like about this game is that new scenarios can be added so easily. You can create your own. People, I'm sure, are going to start sharing scenarios online. You have 14, if I counted right, in here, which is already remarkable. And you just have a system which is infinitely expandable. In fact, I can't wait to see where it goes. I hope that they have other games in the system. They could have Deckbox Mythos, in which we explore ancient mansions and we face Lovecraftian horrors. It could be Deckbox Sci-Fi. You explore a strange new world where no one has been before, and you could bring the system to so many themes, so many settings. Overall, Deckbox Dungeon is a truly exciting game. It is a gem. It really shows you that size doesn't necessarily matter when it comes to good games, because this, I tell you, has to be one of the best games that they played in 2019, and in general, I think it's gonna become a classic in my game circle, or if no one is around, in my personal rotation, because I can also play it solitaire. So simply a great game.